Hi everyone, thanks for joining me. Today we're going to talk about fishing plastic worms. I love to fish plastic worms, but I'll tell you one thing that gripes me. I'm at the dock, I'm talking to somebody. How'd you do? Man, I did great today. Had a 20-pound bag, but I was just fishing worms. Nobody should just be fishing worms. A worm is the most technical bait in your arsenal, and if you don't have the proper technique, I guarantee you, you're not going to get what you should be getting out of fishing plastic worms. So with that, we'll get into this video. I'll talk about baits, I'll talk about rods and reels, but more than anything, we're going to be talking about technique. Let me get set up, we'll get right into the video. We're ready to talk about worm fishing. Before we do, we're going to talk about a couple of things that you may not want to hear, but you need to hear them because first and foremost, I'm just going to say that most anglers that fail to catch fish and fail to catch fish consistently, which is a lot easier to do than catch fish consistently, but those who fail to catch fish consistently probably have one thing in common, and that one thing is they're just not finding the fish. They're not fishing where the fish are. They don't know how to locate fish. If you're not fishing where the fish are, you're just not going to catch fish. That's the first reason people don't catch, or anglers don't catch fish. The second reason would be they don't have the technique. And you can blame it on your bait choice, you can blame it on colors, you can blame it on rods, reels, your boat's not fast enough, whatever it is. But the bottom line is, if your technique, or if you have poor technique, it's going to be much more difficult to catch the fish. And as I said in the introduction, we're going to really focus on technique. But let's talk a little bit about rods, reels, baits, and just the philosophy of fishing worms. Number one, when you go out fishing worms, you can never just have one rod on deck. I'm going to go over about 5 or 6 rods real quick. And my suggestion is if you're just getting into the worm fishing, plastic worm fishing, then you probably should have at least 3 rods. I generally carry about 5 rods, and they're all set up with various weights, various actions, and various techniques, different worming techniques, whether it's drop shot, Nico, different techniques that we'll talk about. I don't want you to go out and buy a bunch of rods. I just want you to be aware of when you come out and you're going to have a day on the water and you're dialed in on worm fishing, you need to have at least 3 rods so that you can fish all the different situations that you're going to come up with in the course of a day. So let's go over 5 rods that I use, and I just kind of want to give you a general idea of what you should have on deck. When I talk about worm fishing and the techniques that we worm fish, it could be any plastic. You can have, if we're talking about fishing a T-rigged worm, you can pull that plastic worm off and put on a crayfish imitation or a creature bait, or any type of plastic bait that you have confidence in. We are talking about worms today, but just remember, you can replace that plastic worm with some type of creature bait or another plastic bait anytime you want. We're going to go from heavy to light. The first rod that I'll talk about would be probably a 7'4" heavy or medium heavy rod. This is a Shimano X Pride. This is a rod that I use for basically flipping. It's for heavy cover. I'm going to use 50 to 65 pound braid. A lot of times I'm throwing straight braid. If I put a leader on this, it's probably 20-pound test mono, and this is a heavy rod to get into those situations where if I get a fish in heavy cover, I can rip that fish out of there. As far as my reels are concerned, I go with basically a 7-to-1. I don't care what kind of reel or rod you're using, especially with the reel. I keep them cranked down almost with the drag all the way down, so that when I set that hook, I'm going to get a good hook set and I could turn that fish's head and pull him in. The next 2 rods that I'll talk about, they're kind of the same rods, but not the same rods. I've got this rod here, which is 7'2", medium heavy, fast action. I throw a lot of my a lot of my weightless inline Cincos on this rod. It's a pretty heavy rod, but if I'm in really heavy cover, I'll stick to my #1 flipping rod. But another heavy rod, 7'2". On this, I'll probably throw 50-pound braid, and generally, this worm I have on straight braid, but generally I will put on 18 to 20-pound test, 3 to 4 feet of leader on this particular rod. The next rod I'll go down to is another conventional rod, and it's just a little lighter than that medium heavy. This is still kind of a medium heavy, but it's a lighter medium heavy. On this one I'll have 50-pound braid, and I'll have 3 to 4 feet of, I'll say 15 to 18-pound test mono. This will throw small T rigs, it'll throw weightless Cincos, it will throw Nicos, it'll throw 6 and 7-inch Cincos. So all three of these are fairly heavy rods. Now the other thing that I'll do is I will gear down just a little bit. This is a 7-foot, happens to be a Tatula, and it's a medium rod, a Daiwa Tatula. It's fairly light. This is a rod that I like to throw 5-inch Cincos with this, maybe even some drop shot, some Bubba shot. But if I'm fishing in heavy cover and I hook that 6 or 7 pound fish, this is a rod that fish is going to have to cooperate a little bit in order for me to get it in. With those heavier rods, I can turn their head, pull them into the boat, and horse them in a little bit. With this rod, it's going to be a little bit of more of a finesse situation, but it is a rod that I really like to fish because most of the fish here on the Delta that we're catching, even though it's considered a big fish body of water, they're going to be in that 2-pound class, and this is just these light 7-foot medium action, fast tip, conventional rods are just a lot of fun to use. And I'm not talking a whole lot about how to rig these up because I'm expecting most of you know, you guys know what a drop shot is, what a Nico rig is, what a wacky rig is, what a Texas rig is. The next rod I'll use is, I'll call it a medium heavy spinning rod. This happens to be a Shimano Curado, 7-foot, and it's more of a parabolic bend, but it's got enough enough muscle in it to have fun with, and you're able to catch bigger fish. On this rod, I'm using probably 30-pound braid. Oh, and by the way, I think I might have forgot. When I go down to my lighter rod, conventional rod, I'm using probably 30 to 40-pound braid, and my leader will be anywhere from 12 to 15-pound mono. With my spinning rod, I'm using 30-pound braid, and the leader that I put on here will be from about 10 to, I'll say 12, maybe 14-pound test. And on this, I'm throwing primarily drop shot and wacky rig. So with these 5 rods, I can go from a heavy flipping rod to a light spinning rod, and I can cover all kinds of situations, what's ever in front of me on any particular day, whether it's heavy cover, whether it's the outside edge of a weed bed, or whatever it may be. With these 5 rods, I feel like I can cover everything I need to cover. As I said before, if you're new to the game, if you can get away with 3 rods, 1 heavy rod that you can flip with, 1 medium heavy where you can throw weightless Cincos and lighter T-rigs, and then 1 light rod where you can throw drop shots and maybe 5-inch Cincos, that'll cover 90% of what you're going to need to fish. What I'm going to do now is we're going to pack up, I'm going to power pole out somewhere out here, and we're going to talk about technique. And I want to talk about 3 different casting techniques that you really need to master. We're going to talk about having the ability to fish with a sense of urgency. And what I mean by fishing with a sense of urgency, isn't that nice? Here comes a couple of swans, ducks, whatever the heck they are. They just landed out here. Beautiful. But getting back to the sense of urgency, we need to come out here and fish with a sense of urgency, especially here on the Delta where we have moving tides, we have a lot of wind, maybe you're on your trolling motor, you're fishing to moving targets all the time. And if you do not have full command of your casting arsenal, you don't have full command of your techniques, you're going to miss so many of those targets. So it is Really important to be able to fish efficiently at a fast pace, and that's what having good technique will do for you. So we're going to get out, we're going to go over some of these techniques. Let's talk about 3 simple casts that you'll need to master in order to become a better worm fisherman. And this isn't a casting video, this is a technique video, but I want to just kind of demonstrate these 3 casts and have you be aware of them. And if you're not a good pitch caster or a backhand caster or a flip caster, you've got to go out and really practice these. The one cast that I don't want you to do is this big overhand cast where the bait goes up 50 feet off the water, comes down, you know, like a bowling ball, and it's affected by wind. You have a lot of big bow in your line. With that cast, by the time the bait hits the water, you've already put yourself behind the 8 ball. What we're going to talk about is the 3 cast, is a pitch cast, a sidearm cast, and a backhand cast. With the pitch cast, we're just going to basically drop the rod tip and pitch it out. That's it. One thing you should remember about the pitch cast is as your bait goes out and hits the water, you want your rod tip to be right within 4 to 6 inches of the water with your rod tip. As you reel in, you never want to reel the bait in all the way up to here. What you want to do is you want to reel that bait in and get good at bringing it in so it stops and it comes right back to your hand. A lot of times I like to pitch my bait from my hand. So I'll pull it in and the bait will come right into my hand and I'll pitch it. Now that's the pitch cast. Another cast is simply a backhand cast. So you can pull it out like this and backhand it, and that'll give you a cast off to the right or to the left. Again, another backhand cast is just this guy. There's a sidearm cast, which is just going to come reverse, which is this cast. And what that does is if you have the pitch cast right out in front of you, you have a backhand cast if there's a bait out to the right of you, or if you have a target. So with those 3 casts, it gives you the ability to really start to pick up your pace. If you have a specific target in front of you, you pitch it right out there. Maybe you see a target that's way off to your right, then you can use a backhand cast to pull in and just pitch that, or backhand it out right to the right of you. Or maybe you're going to see something that's out to the left of you, and at that point you can just basically throw a sidearm cast out to the left of you. So with those 3 casts, you can fish in like a, you know, basically in a 360-degree range if you wanted. That is very important because when you are fishing, especially on the delta where you're moving, like we said, the tide is moving you along. Maybe the guy on the trolling motor is going pretty quickly, or maybe it's wind, you're getting blown by the wind. You have to always be aware of your next 1, 2, and 3 casts. So as you make your cast, I'm already looking where my next cast is going to be. And if my next cast is not right in front of me, I'm going to want to be able to throw that sidearm cast or a backhand cast so that I could get that bait to a prime target. Now let's talk about, let's move this over here a little bit. Now, hopefully you guys can see this, and I have some yellow line on here. When I pitch cast out and I get it out there, as my bait drops on the water, you notice where the tip of my rod is. It's right down next to the water, and you notice that I have direct contact with that bait. Now watch what happens when I throw a bad cast and my bait goes up in the air and I leave my rod up here. Do you see that big bow in the line? I lose total contact with my bait, and if I am fishing I'll say a wacky setup where I'm waiting for that bait to drop down and maybe a fish is going to grab that, I might see the line jump, but more than likely I'm not going to be able to feel anything that goes on with that bait. So again, technique, pitch the cast, let's do that again. So with technique, what we want to do is we want to keep the bait low to the water. As soon as it gets in there, you're going to drop the rod tip, and again, look at my line. It is directly pointed at the bait, and I can feel it as it's dropping, and I know when it hits the bottom. Once that bait hits the bottom, then I could start moving it slowly. And when I move it slowly, if I'm not doing this, I'm not reeling like this, I'm just ticking the bait so I feel it. That bait hopefully was only going to move about this much. Then I tick it again, tick it, and I'll work it all the way back to the boat. You want to move that worm slowly and not cover a lot of ground. Keep it in the strike zone. Cast it out, drop the rod tip. Keep that rod tip right next to the ground, to the water, and keep a nice straight line. You don't want that bow out there. Reminder: when you reel the bait up, you want it to come right in your hand. Another advantage to this is, if you have to clean some snot off your bait, you just put the rod tip under your armpit, and you clean the bait off. If you happen to reel the bait all the way up here, I know a lot of guys will have to drop the rod and they'll do this, and it's just time consuming. You can't fish at a fast pace when you're doing that. I'll try to get some gobbledygook on my worm here. Let's see if I can, not getting anything on there. Anyhow, if I have stuff on it, it goes right to here, I pull it off, I go right to here, pull it one time, back in my hand, and I'm fishing. So that's the pace that you have to fish at. Now let's say I see a target out here. I talk about right now we're not moving, I'm stationary, and we're just doing this for demonstration. But I move past this target and I see a target up there, and I got my foot on the trolling motor. I can't turn to face that target. I'm going to throw a backhand cast and get it up there. Or maybe, usually I don't fish targets that I have passed, but if I have to throw behind me, I can go down there and I can fish behind me. Again, mastering those 3 casts will help you fish with a greater pace. As you're moving along, you can bang, 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 bang. Here's another situation that a lot of people overlook. And let's just say we're fishing a bank, and wherever I have a prime target out there, my bait, I cast it to the prime target. Always remember that that fish is not on the surface of the prime target. If it's 3 or 4 feet of depth where you're casting into, that fish is going to be 4 feet under your prime target. So one of the things that you may have to do is pop a worm out there and give it a little bit of line so that it can drop right into the target. If you allow that bait to pendulum down, even though you've hit your prime target, by the time it gets to the bottom, it's 3 or 4 feet away from where the actual fish is. So remember, you're always trying to have that worm drop straight down and get to the bottom of your prime targets. Now, if I can't do that with a weightless worm, I may have to go with a T-rigged worm. And we'll talk a little bit about some of the things that you're going to encounter during the course of the day. Maybe the wind comes up, you can't get a weightless worm down to 3 to 4 or 5 feet of depth, then you're going to have to go with a T-rig. That T-rig may have a 1/2 ounce weight if the wind's blowing 20 miles an hour. If the wind's blowing 10 miles an hour, you can get away with maybe a 1/4 ounce bait, but you have to adjust that. Drop shotting is another thing that is a very effective way to fish out here. And one of the techniques with drop shotting is simply knowing when and how much you need to change your drop shot weight. A 1/4 ounce weight in a 15-mile-an-hour wind probably is not going to get you to the bottom. The difference between a 1/4 ounce and maybe a 1/2 ounce weight, which gets you to the bottom, can mean all the difference in the world. Learn to fish different techniques with different cast in different areas. I'm going to do some more of these videos, and I'm going to talk about the little things that you're probably not even aware of when I'm fishing this, and I'm going to go over one of them right now. But before I do that and we sign off, I want to just say that it's never one thing when it comes to worming. It's getting together all the little things, getting better at casting. Most everybody can pitch cast at 20 to 30 feet of distance, and they can do that very accurately. But when you can pitch cast from 30 to 40, or 40 to 50, or 50 to 60 feet, and you can do that accurately, that's going to increase your catch rate. Learning the different techniques and pairing those techniques up with the right rod and reel setup, that's going to help you. Lots of little things that catch you 1 or 2 more fish per day. That's what makes you a better angler. One of the things that I'll talk about right now, and I'll have a full video on this with, we'll call it the little things, what I do and what a lot of people do. And these are not all my things that I've invented. These are things that I've learned from other people that I feel are better anglers than I am, and I've kind of put those in my arsenal. You'll notice I've been fishing a weightless worm. Here's my hook. It's an extra wide gap hook. You'll notice that the tip is very shiny and down here is very shiny. That's because I have this painted brown. What I have found, as this worm or this hook kind of falls with the worm and flashes in the sun, it basically scares fish away. So what I do is I paint my worms. This one's painted brown, and as I put this on here, and you don't have to paint them brown, you can paint them green, you can paint them whatever color you want. It takes all the shine off of that bait. Now, does that catch me a fish every time I do that? No, but it's a little thing that I do that I think helps me to catch more fish over the course of the day, especially when you could sit there in real clear water and you throw that out there, and as this worm slowly drops like this and you have a shiny Gamakatsu hook and it's flashing, that scares fish. That flash might be okay with the chatterbait, it may be okay with faster moving baits, but when you're fishing finesse baits and they're looking for natural stuff, I don't like that flash. Just a little thing that I do. We'll talk about how I do this and how you can do it real easy. You probably already got some primer or some paint somewhere in your house that you can try this trick with. Maybe it'll catch you a few more fish during the course of your fishing day. Anyhow, we've gone over a lot. I'll continue doing these videos. If you have any questions, hit me up in the comments. I try to answer all the comments. And the next video, we're going to go into what I call the little things. Painting hooks, certain knots that you use, using colored line, so on and so forth. All the little things that add up at the end of the day to maybe be a big thing. So I want to thank you guys for watching, and until next time, good luck. We'll see you on the river.